If you have a right to do something, you don't have to ask for permission. White people had rights. Black people were slaves. They had no rights. Well, we passed the 13th Amendment, which says there's no more slavery. Well, gosh, if there's no more slavery, then blacks and whites are all the same, right? So you're going to give the black people guns after you've just had them in chains? And I don't think so. They may be a little upset with us. Giving them a gun may not be a real good idea this week. And so what we did was we gave blacks privileges. Okay? Well, this guy's not going to be really angry with it. We'll let him do it, but not this guy over here, because I can still see in his eyes he's angry. So blacks were given privileges with the 14th Amendment. How about a marriage license? Did Thomas Jefferson and George Washington have a marriage license? No. Today, just about everybody has one. Where was the first marriage license? Right after the Civil War. If two white people want to get married and have children, they have a right to do that. They can do anything they want with their property. Now, whites don't have to ask anybody for permission. Blacks we really didn't care. Two black people wanted to get together. We basically considered that animal husbandry. But what if a black person and a white person want to get married? Oh gosh, we can't have that. We can't allow a mixing of the races now, can we? The white person can do anything they want. The black person can't. The black person has to get permission. So the first marriage licenses were permission for interracial marriages. And I have a copy of Black's Law Dictionary. Now this is Black's Law 3rd edition. This is about 1870s, I think, somewhere in that time frame. And so it's an old book, and I've gotten a copy of it, and I've looked up marriage license. And it says, quote, a license or permission granted by public authority to persons who intend to intermarry. Right there in black and white. A marriage license is for mixed marriages. Well, eventually that was working so well that we just apply a marriage license to everybody. Why do you need permission? If you go to a wedding, how many people are in that contract? Well, you got the man, you got the woman, but that's not all. You've also got the state. The state is there giving you permission. Why? Because you asked. If you asked for permission, that's pretty good evidence that you needed permission. Why would you ask for permission if you don't need it? So you've got the man, the woman, and the state. There are 3 entities in this contract. So now the state has a vested interest in the outcome of this contract. Well, what is the general outcome of a marriage contract? You put a boy and a girl in a dark room for long enough, what's going to happen? Children. So now the state, because they are vested in this contract, they have a vested interest in the children. How can this social worker come to your door and say, you're not being a good parent, and take your kids away? Because they own them. If you have a marriage license, the state has partial ownership in your children. That's how they can demand that your children go to school. They want their children in school, government schools. Now, if you don't get a marriage license, if you just say, hey, you're pretty good looking, you want to sleep together? What do they call that? That's a common law marriage. That's probably the only phrase where anybody knows the phrase common law. Well, what is common law? Well, gosh, I don't know. That's what 2 people know. It's not. 2 people get married. It is a common law marriage because it is based on property. And we will get to Article 3 of the Constitution later this afternoon, and we will go into the levels of law in great detail. All right? Now, let's turn to page 6. And I want to bring up another concept. This is the concept of sovereignty. Sovereignty is the idea that you don't have to ask permission. You are the top banana. There's nobody to ask. I'm it. I am the decision maker. Now, sovereignty is defined as the status, dominion, power, or authority of a sovereign, royalty, supreme and independent power or authority in government. Now, back in, let's say, the early 1700s or late 1600s, who was the sovereign in England? The king. He was the sovereign king. That's basically the only time we understand that word, is the sovereign king. Well, how did the king become sovereign? Well, there was a general idea referred to as the divine right of kings. Somewhere along the line, God smacked this guy in the head with his royal scepter, and he became the king. He had all of the rights because he had all of the property. Who owned England? The king. It was his country. He owned it.
Greatest comrade ever.
Okay? And, he just happened to be born to the right sovereignty is. So now, I have a political question. I'm on page 9 of your handout at the top of the page. The philosophical question is, if we, the people, are sovereign, do we have the authority to violently overthrow the government if necessary? Now that's kind of a dangerous question even to ask, because you're automatically labeled an extremist and a radical. Well, so was Patrick Henry. Give me liberty or give me death doesn't sound like he's sugarcoating it. Now, the Declaration of Independence, if you haven't read the Declaration of Independence recently, do so. It is probably the most wonderful document written by humankind. And part of it says that the reason for our government is that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, that when any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it. Not just tyrannical governments, but any government, democracy, republic. If it's not working for you, get rid of it. That governments long established should not be changed for light or transient causes. You don't want to overthrow the government just because you got another parking ticket. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and provide new guards for their future security. So not only do you have a right to overthrow the government, but you have a moral obligation to do so. Ever been to the mall and had somebody else's kids running all over the place, swinging from the chandeliers? They're just being a royal nuisance. Haven't you ever wanted to just go over and slap the parents? Who's responsible for those little monkeys that are causing everybody else grief? The mom and dad. And if they are not, responsible for their children, they are the ones that ought to get slapped. And the kids probably ought to be reined in a little bit too. Who's responsible for Congress? We, the people. And if Congress is in Washington, D.C., doing all sorts of vile and evil things, who's responsible? We, the people. We've got nobody to, blame but ourselves. We have been rotten parents. And it's time that we grabbed our brat. The average age of the world's greatest civilizations has been 200 years. How long has the United States been around? About 225 years. Anybody kind of see sort of a correlation there? The United States government is basically going down the tubes very quickly if we don't stop it and get people to stop thinking of this as a democracy. Oh, people don't think of this as a democracy. I hear it on the news all the time. You watch, all these network news stations saying, well, we got to make the world safe for democracy. I don't want to make the world safe for democracy. I want to eliminate democracy. What type of government do we have?
Republic.
We have a republic. We just pledge allegiance to the flag and to the republic for which it stands. Go to Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution. The United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a republican form of government. It's not a debate. I can point to it in black and white. The question is, what's a republic? Don't we get to vote? Yes. Aren't we a democracy? No. How is a democracy different than a republic? In a republic, it is based on individual rights. It is based on property. In a republic, we can vote on everything except your property. In a republic, the right and property of the minority is supposedly protected. So if my little group here is a republic, and I want to take John's land, the purpose of the republic is to say, no, that's not your land, that's John's land. Even if all of us want John's land, the government is supposed to step in and protect John. The right and property of the minority is protected from the majority. So one person and the law will overrule 285 million votes in the United States. It's not yours. There are certain things you don't get to vote on. That's the difference. And every time you hear them say democracy on TV, pick up the telephone and call them in your most aggravated voice and say, this is not a democracy. This is a republic. Now, we have democracy spelled with a small d, and we have republic spelled with a small r. Those are forms of government. Those are not political parties. We have a Democratic Party spelled with a capital D, and we have a Republican Party spelled with a capital R. But they have no correlation whatsoever to democracy and republic. They are just forms of government. Each one of those parties wants a certain part of your liberty. Now, it's a generalization, and I know that we can find exceptions. However, in general, the Democrats say you can think anything you want. You have all sorts of rights. You want to read Playboy? Go ahead. You want to have abortion? Go ahead. All that stuff is okay. The problem is, it's not your money. We're going to take your taxes, and we're going to spend your taxes for you. I mean, you're just too busy to decide how to spend all that money. So we're going to take your money and we're going to spend it for you on all these really good causes. Now, the Republicans say, no, that's not right. That's your money. You should keep your money. But you should think like we do. We want you to be white, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant, Christian, go to church. We want you to look like us. We want you to think like us. That Playboy magazine is evil. No, we want to control the way that you think. Which one are you willing to give up? Are you willing to give up your money, or are you willing to give up your mind? Which party do you want to vote for? None of the above. Now, one of the things that they have done is they've lied to us. They changed the question so that both answers are bad. If I ask you, do you still beat your wife? Are you going to answer yes or no? Yes, I do still beat my wife, or no, I don't still beat my wife. The question implies that you did beat your wife at one point in time. If they ask me, I can't answer the question. It's not yes or no. I'm not married. I've never had a wife. But you have to be careful that you don't take the question for granted. One of the things that we take for granted, they ask you, whenever you talk about politics, they ask you, are you right-wing or left-wing? Are you Democrat or Republican? Why are those the only two choices? Are you going to vote for Hitler or Stalin? Are you going to vote for the electric chair or lethal injection? Now, in the back of your book, there's a little tiny card. It's called The World's Smallest Political Quiz. One of the things that it does is to eliminate the fallacy that everything is left or right. There is also up and down. Now, Hitler was a totalitarian. Hitler wanted to control your mind and your money. You have no control. The state or the government has all the control. He's on the bottom of the little diamond shape. Now, the Democrats want to control your money, but not your mind. So they are on the left. The Republicans want to control your mind, but not your money. So they are on the right. If you are on the top, where you want to control your own money, you want to do your own thinking, then you are a libertarian. You believe that you are smart enough to spend your own money. You are smart enough to decide for yourself whether you want to read Playboy. Pornography is in the eye of the beholder. You're, adult, make your own decisions. So, stop thinking as everything left and right. Think of everything as two-dimensional, left, right, up, or down. Where do you want to be on the playing field? And you can answer these 10 simple questions, and it give you a score, and it will let you know basically where you stand. Now, let me give you a little anecdote that I developed to talk about the difference between the Republican Party with a capital R and a republic, which is a form of government, with a small r. Let's say that I walk into the room and I have a pet. And my pet is under my arm and it's going, bark, 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 bark. And you say, what's your pet's name? And I say, my pet's name is Dog. Now, my pet is a dog with a small d, but I've also given him a name. And his name is Dog with a capital D. And so I take my dog with me. And so for several years, this dog is my pet dog. Now my dog dies. And I go out and I get a new pet. And I come walking into the room with a new pet. And I've got my new pet under my arm. And my new pet is going, meow, meow. And you say, what do you call your pet? And I say, I call my pet Dog. This is Dog 2. But I like the name so much, I just kept the name. So now, I call my pet Dog with a capital D. What is it? Is it a dog with a small d? No. The name has nothing to do with the animal. The Republicans with a capital R have nothing to do with the Republic with a small r. They've just kept the name. They are voting away all of your rights. Now, people say, well, I don't want to vote for one of the smaller parties because I don't want to waste my vote. I would rather vote for one of the guys that's going to win. And I'm going to ask you again, do you want to vote for Stalin or Hitler? Because those guys are going to win, they're going to get most of the votes. Is there anybody here whose mother did not ask them, if all your friends jump off a cliff, are you going to jump off too? Isn't that stupid? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. If you think that the United States is in trouble, and you go back to vote, and you vote Democratic or Republican just like you've always done, thinking that you're going to fix it, you are insane. You are crazy. Call the men in the white coats, and we'll have them come and pick you up. If you want things to be different, you have to do something different. I don't care which party you vote for. I really don't. Just don't vote Democratic and don't vote Republican. Vote for anybody else. If you vote Democrat or Republican and 98% of the total goes to them, they go, well, things are the same. We got, the will of the people. They don't want anything to change. You say, well, yeah, but if I vote for the Libertarian, he's never going to win. Well, no, if you don't vote for him. But if you vote for him, and let's say he gets 20% of the vote, is he the president? No. But whoever is president is going to go, wait a minute, this guy got 20% of the vote. I'm going to go stand over there and do a little bit more what he was doing. They're going to have to pay attention to you. Have we ever had a socialist president? Well, nobody on the Socialist Party. We've never had somebody from the Socialist Party elected as the president. But they didn't have to. They just started the Socialist Party of America, and they just keep putting out all these ideas and getting votes. And so the Republicans and Democrats have both been becoming more and more socialist. How many people remember Franklin Delano Roosevelt? He may not have been on the socialist ticket, but Roosevelt was a socialist. He went to England, which is the center of all socialism in the world, and he learned to be a socialist. He got elected in 1932, and all of his New Deal is socialism. You like my dog? Meow, meow. Are you going to be fooled if I change the name? No. It's a cat. So then why are you so surprised when they call it the New Deal, and I go, it's socialism? How can you be fooled so easily? Any questions on the different forms of government or the different political parties? Now, on page 11, there are different implementations of those different forms of government. If I have a totalitarian government, it is a monarchy by definition. Fascism is a form of dictatorship. Fascism is a government system led by a dictator or a monarch, having complete power, forcibly suppressing opposition and criticism. Forcibly suppressing opposition. Does that sound like freedom of speech is alive and well under fascism? No, you have no freedom of speech. In fact, if you say anything that the government doesn't like, you're going to disappear about 2 o'clock in the morning, and nobody's ever going to hear from you again. Now, Stalinism is another form of government. Well, Stalin was an American ally. We don't want to piss him off, and so even though he was a fascist, we don't want to call him that because that might be a little embarrassing. He was our buddy. And so we invent a new name. We call it Stalinism. Well, the dictionary correctly defines it as an ideology characterized especially by the extreme suppression of dissident political or ideological views. What does extreme suppression mean? That's pretty well suppressed. Stalin is guilty of killing 25 to 35 million of his own people. Now, I don't condone what Hitler did, but at least he was going, well, it's those guys. Hitler was trying to kill all the other guys. Stalin was killing our guys. And he killed 6 times as many. Why is Hitler the worst guy in history? How come it's not Stalin? Well, he's going to be our buddy. We always saw him sitting on the boat with, FDR. And Winston Churchill. He was one of the big 3. Well, that must mean that, Stalin's a good guy because they're all alike, right? Well, I agree that they're all alike. Socialism is a theory or system of social organization which advocates the vesting of the ownership and control of the means of production in the community as a whole. So, do you have any property under socialism? No, it's not your car. It's our car, and we are letting you use it. It is not your house. It is our house, and we're going to volunteer to let you borrow it. Do you have any property in socialism? No. If you have no property, guess what? You have no rights. Where do rights derive from? Property. Communism is a theory or system of social organization based on the holding of all property in common. It's not yours. That's why communism is bad. That's why we're against socialism. Not because they've got a red flag or because they march funny. Because they're taking all of your property away. And when they take all of your property away, they take away all your rights. Let's flip to the next page. Well, let me just and do a quote from Winston Churchill on page 11. Winston Churchill said, "If you are 20 years old and you are not a socialist, you have no heart. If you are 40 years old and you are still a socialist, you have no brain." Now, what's Churchill trying to tell us? Well, if you're 20 years old and you're listening to the advertising for socialism, what does socialism say? We're all going to have health care. We're all going to have education. We're going to just live together. Everybody's just going to share everything. And we're all going to sing Kumbaya. Socialism is wonderful. How many people want to vote for wonderful socialism? Well, when you're 20, yeah, you're idealistic. We just want everybody to love each other. Isn't that great? Where's all that health care coming from? Where's all that free education coming from? Well, the government. Where does they get the money from? Oh, I finally figured it out 40 years later. That's not very much fun. So when you're young and stupid, socialism sounds like a great idea. When you finally grow up, hopefully not too late, socialism sucks. Let's go to page 12. I have the entire Communist Manifesto summarized here on page 12. Now, in the middle 1800s, somebody asked Karl Marx, what would you need if you were going to start a communist government from scratch? Just clear the playing field, blank slate, you're going to build it from the ground up. What are you going to need? What are the things that you would want to have in order to make this a perfect communist government? The Communist Manifesto is the answer. It's not very long, basically just a term paper. Read it. Why? Because I want you to be a communist? No. I want you to know how they are attacking you. You have to understand the enemy. The 10 planks of the Communist Manifesto. Plank number 1, abolition of private property. No property, no rights. If I stand up on a soapbox and I say, I'm going to start a government where I'm going to take all of your rights away, how many people are going to volunteer? Nobody with half a brain. So now Karl Marx stands in a box and says, I'm going to start a new government and we're going to take everybody's property away. They're signing up like flies. I mean, they're just, yeah, pick me, pick me.
Especially if they have them.
You know, that basically the problem is you don't understand that property and rights are related. If they take your property, you have no rights. And once you understand it, then you understand why communism is evil. It's not just a personal opinion. It's evil. We're taking your rights away. Now, the other 9 planks to the Communist Manifesto are basically just methods for doing the first thing. How are we going to take your rights, property away? Well, number 2 is a heavy progressive income tax. A progressive income tax means the more money you make, the higher the percentage. Do we have a progressive income tax in the United States? Yes. Can you say IRS? They don't put the percentages, they change it and they convert it. If you make between $5,000 and $10,000, this is how much you pay. You make between 10 and 15, this is how much you pay. And they give you the number. Well, get your calculator and figure it out. The more money you make, the higher the percentage. What do you think the highest percentage the IRS has ever collected? Right now, I think the top percent is about 33%. What do you think the maximum was that IRS has ever collected in history?
98.
98%. How did you know that?
I don't remember reading it somewhere.
Okay. Between 1941 and 1942, during World War II, there were some people who were taxed 98%. That's almost all. How come we didn't have another American Revolution? The hell with the Germans. I'm going to get my gun and start fighting here. You're going to take 98% of my stuff? You're going to have to take it. If you think you're big enough to take it, come right on ahead. But I'm not going to give it up. That's ridiculous. Abolition of all rights of inheritance. If your parents die, the government is going to take half. Why? What did they do to get half? They just want to make sure that your parents don't leave you $1 million so that you can get more and more money. It's a lot easier to become a multimillionaire if mom and dad leave you one to start with. We don't want that to happen. Confiscation of all property of immigrants and rebels. You ever fly internationally, you got to fill out a card. If you're carrying more than $10,000, they'll take it. You want to leave the United States and go live someplace else? Goodbye. Leave all your money here. I have friends that want to move to New Zealand. They are trying to figure out a way to put their money in an offshore account so they can keep their money. A central bank. We're going to talk about the Federal Reserve. We can go right on down the line. 10 out of 10 items in the Communist Manifesto are here in the United States right now. Did you know that you live in a communist country? Are you glad that you live in a communist country? What are you going to do about it? We've got to draw the line somewhere. Now, I don't have time to go into it in too much detail. However, I do have a videotape called The 10 Planks. It's a 1-hour video, and it goes into a lot more detail on the Communist Manifesto. And you can get in touch with me, I can give you one of those. What we'll do is we'll take another 10-minute break. We'll get started in 10 minutes, so don't go wandering off too far, because we've got a lot of material to cover. Thank you. 1-hour units. So we'll finish at, it's about 1:45, and then we'll break for lunch and go out next door. We are currently on page 13 of the handout, and this is handout session 9 for those of you that are on video. We're going to talk a little bit about the founding documents. Those of us who went to school a long time ago probably had a little bit of this. Anybody that's gone to school recently, as far as I know, government schools no longer teach American history. We don't want you to know your rights, you might be able to defend them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you kind of a crash course in, American history. We said that people migrated from England, came to the North American continent. They started setting up all of their, their houses and businesses here. They were English. Just like if we Americans moved up to Canada, we'd be living in Canada, but we'd still be Americans. You're just living someplace else. So they were under English rule, and they were proud to be English. Eventually, the king started, laying and collecting taxes. Why was the king registering all these taxes? Because England was at war. Who was England at war with? Anybody remember?
France.
France and Spain. So the king is in England, and he's fighting France and Spain. And he's got to raise money for his army. So he's like, wow, I got all this land that I own in North America. I'll just lay taxes on the people over there. Well, we were paying all these taxes for what? Hospitals, roads, national defense? No. We're just paying it to the king, and he was spending it for whatever he wanted. He was the king. So we got sick and tired of taxation without representation. You're taking our money, and we don't have any say-so over what we're doing with it. Eventually we wrote the Declaration of Independence. And we severed all of our ties with England. We say, we are not going to be English anymore. We no longer have any allegiance to the crown. The Declaration of Independence was not the start of the fighting. The fighting had been going on prior to that. In fact, in 1775, the British soldiers came to Lexington and Concord to take all of our guns. Why? Well, gosh, you can't resist if you've got guns. That's why we want to collect them all. What did the Americans do? We went, no, you won't either. These are our guns. And we ended up firing the shot heard around the world. So a year later, 1776, we formalized the war. The Declaration of Independence was the formal start of the Revolutionary War. Now, what was the end of the Revolutionary War? If the Declaration of Independence started it, what was the official end? The official end of the war was the Treaty of Paris. Wait a minute, were we fighting with England? Why is it the Treaty of Paris? Why wasn't it the Treaty of London? Because you want neutral territory. Someplace that's not yours and it's not mine. We're going to go to neutral territory. We're going to go to Paris. And we're going to sign the Treaty of Paris. Now, I've got a copy of the Treaty of Paris in here. And this book is really excellent because it shows you everything in type that you can read. It also has a photograph. It also has a photograph of the actual document so that you can see what the document looked like. Now, I purchased this book from the National Archive in Washington, D.C. Guess what the title of this is? The Cornerstones of American Democracy. Are we a democracy?
No.
No, we're not. We don't like a democracy. This is from the National Archive. Well, if you're going to Washington, D.C. and buying official books with the Declaration of Independence, and it's called the, Cornerstones of Democracy, why do you think people think we live in a democracy? They are lying to us all the time. Now, the book is very, very good. I just don't happen to like the title. Now, if I get married, and then several years later, I decide to split up, we're going to have to do something. We have to have a divorce settlement. You get the kids, I get the dog, you get the house, I get the car. We got to split up the property. Again, everything derives from property. The Treaty of Paris, if you sit and read it, is a divorce settlement. We are getting divorced from England. We're no longer part of England. And so we're splitting up the property. What did the United States get? Property, a allodial title. It no longer belongs to the king. It's yours. You can own property for the first time in human history. Ta-da! Isn't that great? That's why the Treaty of Paris is so important. Now, we got the property. We are now allodial landholders. What did England get? What did we give England in this settlement? Well, if you ever have a divorce and there are children involved, usually there are custody rights. The kids are going to live with me, but you get to come and visit them every so often. Well, England basically got visitation rights. They get to come here and sell all their products, because we had 2 million people in the United States. Those are customers. England didn't want to lose customers. So we're going to give you the land as long as we can still buy and sell over in America. And we basically gave them the privilege of traveling up and down the Mississippi River. So that's what England got out of the Treaty of Paris. So, now, during that time, while they were fighting the Revolutionary War, did we have the Constitution? No. What did we have as our form of government at the time? The Articles of Confederation. So the Articles of Confederation basically set up a loosely organized group. 13 independent colonies that kind of joined together like a club. In fact, the title of the Declaration of Independence is really the Unanimous Declaration of the 13 United States of America. And united is a small u. It's not an uppercase U. It's not United States. They are states. Just happen to be united. United is an adjective. And this is a unanimous declaration. Anybody have a unanimous declaration all by yourself? I mean, it's a contradiction, isn't it? If something is unanimous, that means everybody in the group agrees. So if this is the unanimous Declaration of Independence, it means there had to be a group. Yeah, 13 states. 13 colonies. They all agreed, and they joined a collective organization which was a confederacy. And the Articles of Confederation were really like the first Constitution. Now, we did not win the American Revolution. We were not really strong and tough and just kicked butt. Didn't happen. George Washington won 2 battles out of all of it. He was constantly running away. He was retreating. Bang, 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 bang. They'd pick up his guys and go. And the British are going, wait a minute, what are you guys doing? Stand still so we can shoot you. How are you supposed to have a battle if you keep running away? That's ridiculous. Bang, 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 and run away, run away. So we only won 2 battles. We didn't win, we just refused to lose. King George is fighting France and Spain. He's got his hands full over here. And he's looking over his shoulder going, oh man, you guys are a pain in the butt. You want to be free? Go. Be free. Be independent. You're more trouble than you're worth. We didn't win. So, how did we win? Just all by ourselves? No. Somebody was loaning us money. Who do you think would loan us money? You think maybe France and Spain? Wait a minute. You hate the king too? Here's money. Go buy guns. You can help us fight the king. There'll be 3 of us now instead of just 2. So France and Spain loaned us all this money. The end of the American Revolution. Okay, Treaty of Paris. Fighting is over. Wait a minute. Do you think that France and Spain want their money back? How many people except mom and dad are going to loan us money and not ask for the money back? So France and Spain, it's like, come on guys, pay up. So according to the Articles of Confederation, Washington could ask, couldn't demand, and everybody's supposed to pay their fair share. And Virginia went, we'll catch you next month. We're busy growing tobacco right now. We're trying to build up Virginia. And nobody was putting in their fair share. And if they did, they were printing money. Each one of the colonies was an independent country. Like France and Spain, we had Virginia, Massachusetts, Connecticut. And they printed their own money. And they were printing it like it was going out of style. Pretty soon, people would not take money. I said, here, I'll give you $1. You go, I don't want $1. Why not? Because next week it's going to be worth 50 cents. It's losing money. I'll take something useful. Give me chickens. Give me silver. Give me gold. But I'm not going to take that paper money. If people will not take money, what happens to the economy? It stops. And if the economy stops, everybody's in trouble. And so they went, wait a minute, you guys got to go back to Philadelphia and you've got to fix the Articles of Confederation. Add a paragraph, delete a sentence, edit, patch it up, make it work. So they go all rushing off to Philadelphia. Did they modify the Articles of Confederation? No. They scrapped it. They started from scratch. And they came up with the Constitution. Yay! But, these guys were the founding fathers, and they all just agreed. They just kind of sat around with their arms around each other, and there was just unanimous approval for the Constitution, right? No! They almost got into fisticuffs. Benjamin Franklin several times had to stop them from fighting. That's how much they were arguing. Now, who were the 2 groups? You had, first of all, Alexander Hamilton and all of his boys. Did you know that Alexander Hamilton was a monarchist? He did not like King George, but he liked the idea of a king. In fact, he liked it so much, he wanted to take the English system of government and bring it here. We're going to have our own House of Commons, our own House of Lords. We're going to have our own Parliament. And Alexander Hamilton actually asked George Washington if George Washington would be the first king. Fortunately for us, King George Washington said no. Luckily, now, they went into Philadelphia, and Alexander Hamilton and his boys, they came in with a whole new document. And they said, well, I think we can get this one passed. Now, there are 2 forms of government. On page 13, we look at the definition of federal. Federal is of or pertaining to a compact or league, especially a league between nations or states. It's a club. Now, let's look at national. Of, pertaining to, or maintained by a nation as an organized whole or independent unit. So a national government is one. A federal government is many. If we talk about the United States, we are talking about a national government. At the early stages of our country, we talked about these United States. These meaning plural. We don't use that anymore. Why not? So you got a federal government versus a national government. Now, Alexander Hamilton wanted a national government. He wanted a strong central government. And he wrote the Constitution, or helped write the Constitution, to establish a strong central government. Do you think the people would have voted for that? No. We just had a war against King George. We just got rid of a strong central government. Why would I want another one? So Alexander Hamilton knew that people would never vote for a national government. So he called himself and his group the Federalists. Isn't that great? That's like dog and cat. So he just named his group the Federalists. But he was really a nationalist. Now, Thomas Jefferson and all of his boys wanted a loosely organized government, or a federal government. Thomas Jefferson was a Federalist. Well, wait a minute, you can't use that name because Alexander Hamilton's already got that name. So Alexander Hamilton jumped in. He says, okay, you guys can be the anti-Federalists. If you're an anti-Federalist, does it sound like you're in favor of a loosely organized group or against it? So before the Constitution was even written, our politicians were already lying to us. Now, if you go to... Now, Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay wrote newspaper articles. They were basically editorials, trying to convince people to ratify the Constitution because we think it's such a great idea. Those newspaper articles are collected together and called the Federalist Papers. That was one of the things that we used to have to read in school. Now I've never even heard people don't even know what they are. There's another book known as the Anti-Federalist Papers. Those were written by Patrick Henry and the guys that are against the Constitution. It's a lesser-known book. You should really read both of them. People say, well, we don't know what the Founding Fathers were really thinking. Baloney! We know exactly what they were thinking. They wrote it down. You just have to read it. The politicians say, no, we don't know what they were thinking. We have no idea what they said. So you'll just have to take our word for it. Okay. So let's read a little bit what they said. Alexander Hamilton wrote in Federalist Paper number 9, the definition of a Confederate Republic seems simply to be an assemblage of societies, or an association of two or more states into one state. The extent, modifications, and objects of the federal authority are mere matters of discretion. Like, don't worry your pretty little head about it. Right? So long as the separate organizations of the members be not abolished, so long as it exists by a constitutional necessity for local purposes, though it should be in perfect subordination to the general authority of the Union, it would still be, in fact and in theory, an association of states, or a confederacy. This fully corresponds in every rational import of the term with the idea of a federal government. So he's twisting the words around and saying, no, it's really a federal government because we didn't erase all the lines. Patrick Henry wrote in 1788, the fate of this question and America may depend on this. Have they said, we the states? Have they made a proposal of a compact between states? If they had, this would be a confederation. It is otherwise most clearly a consolidated government. The question turns, sir, on that poor little thing, the expression, we the people, instead of States of America. I need not take much pains to show that the principles of this system are extremely pernicious, impolitic, and dangerous. The rights of conscience, trial by jury, liberty of the press, all of your immunities and franchises, all the pretensions to human rights and privileges are rendered insecure, if not lost, by this change so loudly talked about by some and inconsiderately by others. Is this same relinquishment of rights worthy of free men? Is it worthy of that manly fortitude that ought to characterize Republicans? It is said 8 states have adopted this plan. I declare that if 12 states and a half had adopted it, I would, with manly firmness, and in spite of an erring world, reject it. So Patrick Henry says, you're all wrong. It is not a federal government. It is a national government, and I don't care how many people say that 2 + 2 is equal to 5. It's not. So there were people at the time who were opposed to the Constitution because they were afraid that it gave too much power to the government. We've got 225 years of hindsight. Who was right? Now, the Constitution was written as a response to all this printed money. When you print money, you cause inflation. When you cause inflation, people will not accept the currency. If people do not accept the currency, the economy stops. And if the economy stops, everybody is hurt. And so they said, go to Washington and create something, fix the Articles of Confederation. They didn't. They replaced it. Started from scratch with the Constitution. It was signed on September 17th, 1787. All right? We're very, very close to September 17th, Constitution Day. What are you doing for Constitution Day to, celebrate that document? All right? Or possibly to announce how bad that document is. The Constitution is a wonderful document, but it has some terrible flaws in it. If you don't read the document, you don't know what the flaws are. Now, the Constitution had to go out and had to be ratified. Why? Because they didn't have authorization to do that. They had to get permission from the people. And so the states, the 13 colonies, had to ratify it. How many colonies had to ratify it before it became the supreme law of the land? 9. The Articles of Confederation said it had to be unanimous. You think they would have been able to be unanimous? No. So Alexander Hamilton said, we got to get away with less. We'll do it for 9. And then just kind of forced everybody into it. Now, eventually, all 13 states did ratify it, but only 9 were required. Now, when we ratified the Constitution, that was 2 years later, in 1789. 1789 was the same year that we wrote the Bill of Rights. Well, why did we write a Bill of Rights? Wasn't the Constitution good enough? No. They were afraid that the Constitution gave too many powers to the federal government. We wanted protection from the government. We wanted a Bill of Rights. We wanted further limitations on the government. All right? So the Bill of Rights was written in 1789 and ratified 2 years later in 1791. So everybody remembers 1776. Add 11 and you've got 1789, which was the 87. 1787 is when the Constitution was signed. 2 years later, in 89, it was ratified, and the Bill of Rights was written, and the Bill of Rights was ratified 2 years after that in 1791. Right? So 11, 2, and 2. Now, let's talk about the Constitution, finally. If you open up your book on the Constitution to page 17, we have the preamble. What is a preamble? It's a paragraph that says why we are writing this document. It's a statement of purpose. Most of you should know this by heart. It says, "We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America." Okay? That's why we were writing the Constitution. So, to form a more perfect union, that means they already had a union. The Articles of Confederation. But we said that one doesn't work so well, so we are going to form a more perfect union. All right? For these reasons. And then it says we're going to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Does that mean for everybody? No, that's how we should interpret it, but that's not what they meant. And also notice that the first line says, "We the people of the United States." And the last line says, "Establish this Constitution for the United States of America." United States and United States of America. Those are two different things. One is a republic, the other is a democracy. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Now, the Constitution was set up to operate as a negative authority. Who has all the power? We do. We are giving power and authority to the government. That is a permission. We have the rights, they get privileges. Don't let them tell you anything different. Now, the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of each state are a political trust. Let me describe a trust very briefly. Let us pretend that I am very old. Let us also pretend that I am very rich. You're going to have to pretend on the rich part a lot harder than you have to pretend on the other part. Okay? So I'm rich and old and I have children. And I want to leave my money, all my millions of dollars for my children. But they're children. They don't know how to spend money. If I give them $10 million, they're going to spend it on bubble gum. You know? And I don't want that to happen. So, knowing that I'm probably going to die before they grow up, I want to create a contract. I'm going to create a contract with John. This is Uncle John. And I want to leave my money for my children. So I write a contract with John that says, I'm going to give you my money. And when my children turn 18 or 21 or whatever age I decide, I want you to give them their money. And I will pay you $1,000 a year or whatever it is to do that. So I've got a contract with John. That is known as a trust. I am the trustor. The reason I write this contract is because I trust John. I don't think he's going to, take advantage of me. Because I'm not going to be here to make sure. John is the trustee. He's the person that I'm putting my trust in. Now, who does the money belong to? John? No. The money belongs to my children, the beneficiaries of the trust. Do they have to do anything to get that money? Well, no, probably not. Just grow up. If I've got a son that's a real bum, maybe I'll say that he's got to get married before he gets the money. But I can write that into the contract. And so if my son turns 21 and he's not married, can John give my son the money? No, that would be a breach of contract. John has a fiduciary responsibility to execute that contract as I wrote it. The Constitution is a political trust. Who wrote the trust? The Founding Fathers. What did they want to give us? Money? No. Liberty and security. They fought for it, they had it, and they wanted to make sure they transfer it to their posterity. So what did they do? They wrote up a trust, a contract, with a group of people who are the trustees. Who are the trustees of this contract? Government. Anybody who goes into office. Why do they take an oath of office to solemnly swear to uphold and defend the Constitution? So that if they violate that contract, they are guilty of perjury and treason. Perjury is punishable by imprisonment. Treason is punishable by life in prison or death. This is not small potatoes. This is serious stuff. So the Constitution is a political trust, and everybody who goes into office takes an oath of office, and they have a fiduciary responsibility to protect your rights. It's not just a good idea. It's a contractual obligation. So we want to put limits on that power. Now, one of the things that the Founding Fathers did was to establish a system of checks and balances. How many people remember that? Good. Now, what are the system of checks and balances? Lock and key? Well, kind of, sort of. There are three branches of government. You have the legislative branch that makes the law, the executive branch that enforces the law, and the judicial branch that adjudicates breaches of the law. But it's all law. And we want to make sure that each group doesn't have too much power, so we separate them. Ironically, the first three articles of the Constitution are legislative, executive, and judicial. You want to know anything about Congress, go to Article 1. You want to know anything about the President and Vice President, go to Article 2. Supreme Court, that's Article 3. Let's talk about Article 1, which is legislative. Go to page 17. It says, all legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress, consisting of a Senate and House of Representatives. Why do we have a Senate and a House of Representatives? Why didn't we just have like one big room? That would, if you're going to argue, at least you're there in the same room together.
There was a fight between the states. The little ones felt like they wouldn't be represented, so they got two senators. They would be equal, but representatives, they kind of
Good.
things out.
So we're trying to argue about this Constitution. And you've got big states like New York and Virginia have lots and lots of people. You've also got little tiny states like New Jersey and Rhode Island. And they're saying, well, okay, we're going to vote, the big states are saying, we're going to vote by population. The more people you get, the more votes you get. The small states are going, whoa, 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 whoa. That's not fair. You guys have got way more people than we do. So if we decide to do that, then we're never going to get a vote. Or we're only going to get so many votes, it's not going to count. We're never going to have any say-so. So each state should have its own vote. One state, one vote. And the big states are going, whoa, 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 that's not fair. You guys have only got, 20 people. So if you guys vote, then everybody in Virginia is supposed to go the way that in Virginia or New Jersey goes? That doesn't sound fair. This was the biggest argument in the entire thing, is how they were going to vote. It ended up being the great compromise. You're not going to do it that way, we're not going to do it this way, we're going to do it both ways. The House of Representatives currently has 435 members. The number of representatives that you have depends on how many people you have. That makes the big states happy. The Senate was originally going to have one. They decided to have two just in case somebody got sick. Every state gets 2 senators. That way, whether you're New Jersey or Texas, you still get 2. Everybody's got the same vote. So you make the small states happy, and you do it both ways. Now, we can go through. What I'd like you to do is go to page 18, and we're going to look at Section 2, Clause 3, which says, shall be determined by adding the whole number of persons. The actual enumeration shall be made within 3 years after the first meeting of Congress and within every subsequent term of 10 years. What are we talking about? The census. Why do they take the census? They have to. It's in the Constitution. Why do they take a census? Why do we go out and count noses?
For representatives.
To find out how many representatives you've got. What happened to Texas in the last census? We added 2 representatives. That's because Texas is so wonderful, everybody's moving here. You go, wow, you guys got a lot more people. We're going to have to give you 2 more representatives. What does that mean about somebody else? They lost 2 somewhere along the line. So the census is mandatory. They have to count and find out how many people. Can they ask you how much money you make? Whether you're living with somebody? How many children you have? No.
Well, they can, but you don't have to answer.
Oh, that's good. Good response. They can ask. But you don't have to tell them. I got, unfortunately, the small form. I was hoping to get the big form, so there would be more answers that I refused to answer. More questions that I refused to answer. But they're supposed to take the census for representatives and taxation. Direct taxes are supposed to be apportioned to the several states. Direct taxes are taxes that you cannot avoid. Indirect taxes are taxes that you can avoid, like a sales tax. They got a tax on gasoline, and you don't want to pay the tax, what do? Don't buy gas. But if it's a direct tax, you can't avoid it. They basically come and collect it. Well, a direct tax cannot go directly to the people. It is apportioned to the several states. Congress has to write a bill, say, well, we need $1 million for whatever. Now, if they need $1 million, Washington, D.C. should send a bill to Sacramento, California for their share. California has 10% of the people in the United States. 1 out of every 10 people in the United States lives in California. So Washington, D.C. should send Sacramento a bill for $100,000, or 10% of the bill. If Sacramento's got the money, they should write a check, and the people of California never know. If they don't, well, then they can send out tax everybody 25% or 25 cents for your fair share. But once that tax is collected, it's over. End of story. Now, please go to page 20, and we want to look at Article 1, Section 4-2. The sections are labeled in your book. The clauses are not. So when you get to a clause, you just have to count paragraphs. So this is the, right underneath Section 4, the second paragraph. It says, Congress shall assemble at least once in every year. Why do they write that? How long is Congress in session right now? All year long. I mean, 11 and a half months a year. They take 2 weeks in December to go to the Bahamas with their secretary. So why is Congress in session so long? Or rather, why did the Founding Fathers feel a necessity to write, you must get together once a year? What difference does it make? They're there all the time. Well, maybe they didn't expect Congress to be there all year long. What is Congress supposed to do? Where is that listed? It's listed in Section 8. Let's go to page 23. In the middle of the page in your book, little booklet, Constitution booklet, says, Section 8, Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises every April 15th for anything they want. Isn't that what your book says? I have a different copy? What does your book say? To lay and collect duties, imposts, and excises, to pay the debts, provide for the common defense, and general welfare. End of story. If they are collecting taxes for anything other than that, it's unconstitutional. They can't do that. Now, Section 8 gives a list of 18 things that Congress is permitted to do. It's a privilege that we give them. Let's look at some of them. They can borrow money. They can regulate commerce with foreign nations, establish a uniform rule of naturalization, coin money and regulate the value thereof, provide for the punishment of counterfeiting, establish post offices, promote the progress of science, constitute tribunals to define and punish piracies, declare war, raise and support armies, to provide and maintain a navy, etc., etc. 18 things. Those are the things that Congress is given permission to do. Anything that Congress is doing that is not in that list is, by definition, unconstitutional. Take a quick check. Show me Board of Education. Can you find it? Show me Social Security. Is it in there? They're unconstitutional. You can't do that. Now, they can build an army. They can build a navy. Okay, bang. You got soldiers, you got sailors.
No Air Force.
Okay, well, there wasn't an Air Force at the time.
When they say and general welfare of the United States, is that where they come back and say, here's education,
Okay.
here's my...
What is general welfare? General welfare means that it's got to be good for everybody, for the general population.
That's the things that they specify. Like the patent office and the trademark office, those are the items of general welfare. They're
That's right.
regulated specifically.
Now, handouts for food stamps or free housing and all that, is that general welfare? No, not unless everybody gets it. That is not general welfare, that is specific welfare. And that's where they've twisted these words around.
What about public education?
I'm opposed to public education. I'm in favor of everybody being really smart. But in 1953, we established the Department of Housing, Education, and Welfare. During the 1950s, students in the United States were #1 in math and science. Russia was a distant #2. We were so far in first place that we didn't even have to worry about it. Everybody was sending their boys and girls to the United States to get a good education. So now we've had the Department of Education for about 50 years. Can your kids read and write? If they can, it's not because they went to school. Currently, United States students are 21 on a nationwide or worldwide scale. We are no longer in first place. In fact, we are so far from first place, we can't even count that high. So, back to my definition of insanity. We've had the Department of Education for 50 years. You want to throw more money into it? No, let's eliminate the Department of Education. Let's start teaching our kids something. Homeschool them. They have a national spelling bee every year. The last 4 years in a row, the winner of the national spelling bee was homeschooled. The last year, the first, second, and third place students were homeschooled. You have to be a rocket scientist to figure this out? Your kids are going to school and coming back stupid. Take them out of school so they learn something. Congress is supposed to create an army. They did. They're supposed to create a navy. They did. What are they going to do next year? Well, you don't have to create an army. You've already got one. You don't have to create a navy again, so you can cross those two off the list. You're supposed to create post offices. Well, okay, we did. Maybe this year we got one more. Okay, we've got it. Now what? Well, there's not much else they're supposed to do. Go home! That's why the Founding Fathers put in that article about you've got to get together at least once a year. How often do we elect our representatives? Every other year. The Founding Fathers were paranoid that we were going to go to Washington, get elected, have a big celebration, and then go home and never come back. They don't want the ship of state traveling without somebody checking in, and so they say you got to check in at least once a year. That all by itself gives you a strong clue that Congress is doing more than they're supposed to. Go home. Section 9 of Article 1 is a list of things that Congress can't do. Now wait a minute. If we are giving you permission, and I've given you a list of the things that you can't do, anything that's not on that list, you can't do, right? Didn't you tell your kids, these are the things you can eat. Grapefruit, cauliflower, spinach. Anything that's not on that list, you can't eat. How about M&Ms? Is it on the list? No, then you can't do it. But as a parent, you know that a list of things you can do isn't enough. If you're going to go off to the store, you can say, these are the things you can't eat, and these are the things you can't eat. You can't have M&Ms, you can't have Hershey bars, you can't have candy of any form, just in case you didn't know from the first list. So we gave Congress, just in case you didn't know, a second list. Section 9 says these are the things you cannot do. Let me look at 9. On page 25, 9-4. No capitation or other direct tax shall be laid unless in proportion to the census or enumeration hereinbefore directed to be taken. So we're giving Congress power to tax. We already said that it was supposed to be enumerated, but we're going to go in and say, and you can't do any tax that's not based on enumeration. You can't. Are they doing it? Yeah. It's unconstitutional. Who's going to do something about it? Congress? No. It's our job. We've got to hold their feet to the fire. You can't do it if you don't know the Constitution. Section 10 of the Constitution tells the states certain things that they cannot do. Let's look at page 26. Section 10-1. No state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation. Why? Because you're already in a confederation. You're already part of the United States. You can't be a part of their stuff, too. What would you say if your husband or wife came home and said, sweetheart, I'm getting married? Time out. You can't do that. You're already in an agreement. The other thing the states cannot do is grant letters of marque and reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, or make anything but gold and silver coin and tender in payment of debts. Why gold and silver? Because it has real value. You pick it up and it's worth something. It feels like something. It's heavy. Not like those tokens they give us. This is real money. This is lawful money. It's authorized by the Constitution. Anything other than gold or silver is unconstitutional for the states. Now we're going to talk about money a lot more after lunch, so I'm just going to kind of leave that. But that is why I require silver for this class, because it is constitutional. It would be hypocritical for me to accept Federal Reserve notes, which are fiat, worthless paper. So, Article 1 tells you everything that you need to know about Congress. It gives them a list of things that they are allowed to do. Anything that is not listed in Article 1, Section 8 is, by definition, unconstitutional. Article 2 deals with the executive. The executive is the President of the United States and his Vice President, and everybody else who is enforcing the law down to your local police officer. He or she is also part of the executive. Now, it says on page 27, in that third paragraph there, the electors shall meet, each state shall appoint in such manner as the legislature thereof may direct a number of electors equal to the whole number of senators and representatives to which the state may be entitled in the Congress. How many representatives does Texas have now? 32. How many senators do we have? 2. So we've got a total of 34 members in Congress. Now, the state legislature can elect as many. So we've got 34 over here in Congress. We're going to create another 34 people. These are electors. What are they going to do? They are going to elect the president. This is your electoral college. It's not the senators and representatives that are voting, but the same number. We've got 535 people in Congress and 535 different people in the Electoral College. They are the ones to get the vote. Have you ever seen them on TV? Yes, during the last election down in Florida, when we had this big brouhaha, they finally showed members of the Electoral College. They had like 32 people in Florida who were dropping their ballots in the box. Now, if the people get to vote for the president directly, what does that make the United States? A democracy. Do you want a democracy? No. So the Founding Fathers set up a system to basically say, these people are going to take, the feel of the country, or the feel of the state. Now, if you are an elector, you're supposed to say, okay, all of my group is Republican. And you're supposed to take that into account. And probably 9 times out of 10, you're going to vote Republican because all the people that you represent are Republican. But what if it's 50-50? 50% Democratic, 50% Republican. Now who do you vote for?
Your choice.
Your choice. Now, if you get 90% Republican, can you vote Democratic?
Yes.
Yes. It's your choice. You're supposed to do what you think is the smart thing to do. Because if the people all say, oh yeah, let's vote for that Ross Perot guy, and you don't think that's a good idea, you're protecting them from their own stupidity. That's why they elected you.
Or the elector is stupid.
You elected the wrong guy. What's that? It's based on each state. And what's that? It's going to be different for each state. The state legislature determines how your electors are chosen. And one of the things on my growing list of things to do is to find out how Texas does it. I just haven't had time to get around to it. Okay? So, if that system is corrupt, why are you voting for president? Why do we go out and cast our ballot? Does the popular vote mean anything? No. Years and years ago, you had this little car seat for kids, a little plastic steering wheel. So you could sit next to Daddy, and you could help drive. I help Daddy. Okay? If you're going, and turning right with your steering wheel, can the car go left? Yeah, because your steering wheel almost not connected. If voting for the president meant anything, it would have been illegal long ago. Now, the vice president, go to page 28. It says, you're going to vote for, okay, but in choosing the president, the votes shall be taken by the states. Where am I? Okay, right at the top of the page. So the person having the greatest number of votes shall be the president, if such number be the majority of the whole number of electors appointed. And if there be more than one of such a more, okay. Where does it say the vice president? The vice president is the guy that gets the second number of votes.
In every case after the choice.
Okay.
3/4 of the way down that right there.
Okay. In every case after the choice of making president, the person having the greatest number of votes of the electors shall be the vice president. Okay. Is that the way we do it? No. When did that change? Had to change somewhere. Okay. That's the 12th Amendment. And we'll talk about the 12th Amendment. Now, one last thing before we go. Page 29. Okay. Look at the last paragraph on the page, the bottom of page 29. It says, before he enter on the execution of his office, he shall take the following oath or affirmation. Quote, I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Just like Lincoln does.
The oath of office is in the Constitution. They wrote it down. Why? It's a trust. It's a contract. And when you take that oath of office, you are swearing to defend and protect the Constitution. If you don't, it's perjury and treason. So what I want to do is I'm going to stop there. We're going to break for lunch. When we come back, we'll finish up a little bit with the executive. All right?
I like to use